I found out that my life was a lie the moment I saw my principal's face turn pale as he watched me, a lowly school janitor, play a piece of music on the auditorium's grand piano that was never supposed to be heard by anyone. I had spent 15 years pushing a broom through these hallways, being the invisible man everyone walked past without a glance, but that single melody changed everything and tore my world apart in a way I never saw coming. Was I wrong for keeping my past a secret for so long? Or did I have every right to take back the life that was stolen from me? I need you to listen to my story and tell me if you would have stayed silent, or if you would have burned it all down like I did. My name is Elias, and for over a decade, the only sound I was associated with was the rhythmic squeak of my cleaning cart, and the splash of soapy water against linoleum. People look at a janitor and they see a failure, or maybe just a ghost in a uniform. They don't see a man who once performed in the greatest concert halls in Europe. They don't see the hands that used to fly across ivory keys before they were calloused by chemicals and manual labor. I grew up a prodigy, the kind of kid who could hear a bird chirp and tell you exactly what note it was. By 20, I was on track to be the next big name in classical music. I had a beautiful wife, Sarah, who was a brilliant violinist, and we were the golden couple of the industry. My life was a whirlwind of red carpets, standing ovations, and the kind of prestige that makes you feel invincible. But success breeds envy, and envy breeds monsters. My mentor, a man named Dr. Eris Thorne, whom I trusted like a father, was secretly rotting with jealousy as my fame eclipsed his own. He orchestrated a scandal that framed me for a crime I didn't commit. Theft of intellectual property and a horrific smear campaign that claimed I was abusive toward Sarah. He forged documents, manipulated recordings, and used his influence to turn the entire music world against me overnight. It was all a lie, a calculated move to steal my compositions and silence me forever. Sarah believed him, or perhaps she was just scared of the storm, and she left me without a second glance. I lost my career, my reputation, and my soul. I changed my name, moved to a town where nobody knew me, and took the only job that offered me peace: cleaning the floors of a local high school. For 15 years, I existed in the shadows. I watched kids grow up, I watched teachers retire, and I never touched a piano. The pain was too sharp, like a physical wound that refused to scab over. Every time I passed the music room, I would look the other way, the smell of old wood and resin triggering memories of a life that felt like a dream someone else had. I became a master of invisibility. I knew which floorboards creaked, which lights flickered, and how to blend into the beige walls so perfectly that I could overhear every secret whispered in the halls. I saw the cruelty of teenagers, the exhaustion of teachers, and the quiet desperation of those who felt they didn't belong. But then came Leo. Leo was a quiet kid, a sophomore who spent his lunch breaks hiding in the music wing to avoid bullies who targeted him for his stutter and his hand-me-down clothes. He reminded me so much of myself, fragile, talented, and completely unaware of his own power. He would sit at the upright piano in practice room B and play with such raw emotion that it made my heart ache. One afternoon, while I was mopping the stage area, I saw him struggling with a complex piece of jazz fusion that required a level of technical precision he hadn't mastered yet. He was hitting the wrong chords, his fingers stiff with frustration, and he eventually slammed his fists against the keys in a fit of silent rage. Without thinking, I walked over. I didn't say a word. I just reached out with my rough, scarred hand and played a single C major 7th chord with a substituted 4th that resolved the tension perfectly. Leo looked up at me like he'd seen a ghost. He asked me how a janitor knew music theory, and I just told him I'd picked up a few things over the years while cleaning up after the real musicians. From that day on, we had a secret. Every day after school, while the building emptied out and the sun began to set, I would teach him. I didn't just teach him notes. I taught him how to breathe through the music, how to let the keys be an extension of his heartbeat, and how to tell a story without saying a single word. I felt alive for the first time in years. I started bringing him old scores I had memorized, teaching him techniques that were usually reserved for conservatory graduates. But as Leo got better, the school's music director, Mr. Sterling, a pompous man who cared more about trophies and his own image than actual talent, started taking notice. Sterling was a mediocre musician at best, a man who had settled for a high school job because he couldn't make it in the professional world. He saw Leo's sudden meteoric improvement and tried to take the credit for it, telling the principal he had discovered a diamond in the rough. He didn't know that behind every one of Leo's brilliant performances was a man with a mop standing in the wings, guiding him through the shadows. The tension started building when the state competition was announced. The school was struggling for funding, and a win would save the arts program and, more importantly to Sterling, secure him a promotion to the district office. Sterling was desperate. He started hovering over Leo, trying to force him into a rigid, soulless style of playing that stripped away everything I had taught him. He wanted technical perfection, but he was killing the music's spirit. Leo was miserable. He started losing his spark, his playing becoming robotic and cold. He came to me in tears one night after a grueling rehearsal, saying he wanted to quit and that Sterling had called him a useless charity case. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I realized I couldn't stay hidden anymore, while another predatory man tried to crush a young soul for his own gain. I started writing again. I didn't use paper. I kept it all in my head, composing a piece for Leo that was so complex, so beautiful, and so haunting that it would be impossible for any judge to ignore. I called it The Ghost's Redemption. I spent my nights in the darkened auditorium after my shift ended, composing by the light of the emergency exit signs. I thought I was alone. I didn't know that Mr. Sterling had installed new security cameras after a series of petty thefts in the locker rooms. He saw me. He saw the janitor playing like a god on the stage he thought he owned. Instead of being amazed, he was terrified. He recognized the piece because it carried the signature style of the disgraced prodigy he had studied in college. It turns out, Sterling was a former student of Dr. Eris Thorne, the man who had ruined my life. He knew exactly who I was because my face was burned into his memory as a cautionary tale of what happens when you get too arrogant. He knew that if I came to light, his own mediocre career and the reputation of his mentor would crumble under the weight of the truth. He cornered me in the basement the next day, his face twisted in a smug grin. He told me if I didn't leave town immediately, he'd report me for inappropriate contact with Leo, using our secret lessons as bait to ruin me all over again. He said nobody would believe a creepy janitor over a respected teacher. I was backed into a corner, feeling the walls of the past closing in on me. I felt that familiar, paralyzing fear of being hunted, of being silenced. I was just a janitor, and he was a man with a title and a clean record. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have disappeared to save yourself from another scandal? Or would you have fought back against a system designed to keep you down? I decided I was done running. I spent the next week preparing in secret. I knew Sterling would try to stop Leo from playing my piece, so I made sure Leo had a digital copy of the sheet music hidden in his phone. I also did something I hadn't done in 15 years. I reached out to an old contact, a journalist who had once doubted the charges against me, but lacked the proof to help. I told her to be at the winter gala. The night of the gala arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. The entire town was there, including the Board of Education, wealthy donors, and even a few scouts from regional orchestras. Sterling was preening, walking around in a tuxedo that cost more than my monthly salary. Leo was supposed to play a safe, boring sonata that Sterling had handpicked to show off his discipline. But as Leo walked onto the stage, he looked at me standing in the shadows of the stage-left curtain. I nodded, a silent promise that I wouldn't let him fall. He sat down, and instead of the sonata, he began the opening, thunderous chords of The Ghost's Redemption. The room went silent. It was a sound that didn't belong in a high school gym. It was a sound that belonged to the ages. Sterling, sitting in the front row, turned a shade of purple I'd never seen before. He actually stood up mid-performance, waving his arms and shouting for Leo to stop, claiming the boy had lost his mind and was playing unauthorized, dangerous material. The crowd started murmuring, confused and uncomfortable. That was my cue. I walked out onto that stage, not in a tuxedo, but in my blue janitor's uniform, carrying my mop bucket and a damp cloth. The crowd gasped, some even laughed, thinking it was a prank. I walked straight to the second piano on the stage, a backup used for duets that was usually kept locked. I pulled the key from my janitor's ring, the master key that opened every door in the building. And I unlocked it. I sat down and I joined him. I didn't just play. I poured 15 years of silence, 15 years of bitterness, and 15 years of hope into those keys. The harmony between the janitor and the student was so powerful that the security guards who came to remove me stopped in their tracks, mesmerized by the sheer wall of sound we were creating. It was a conversation between two souls who had been told they weren't enough. We finished the piece with a crashing crescendo that seemed to shake the very foundation of the building. For a full minute, there was total silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Then, the room exploded into a standing ovation that lasted for nearly 10 minutes. In the aftermath, the chaos was beautiful. Sterling tried to have me arrested for trespassing and disrupting a school event. But the journalist I had called was already there, recording the whole thing. She recognized me instantly. The video of the piano janitor went viral overnight, but the real story was the investigation that followed. With the spotlight on me, I finally had the platform to present the evidence I'd been gathering for years, emails and recordings I'd recovered from an old hard drive that proved Dr. Thorne had framed me. The music world was rocked. Dr. Thorne was stripped of his titles and faced multiple lawsuits. Sterling was fired immediately, not just for his treatment of me, but for his attempted sabotage of a student's performance. The school received more funding than they ever dreamed of from donors who were moved by the story. But more than that, I got my name back. I didn't go back to the world stages, though. I didn't want the red carpets or the fake smiles of the industry that had discarded me. I stayed at the school, but not as a janitor. They created a special position for me as the director of artistic development. I still see the kids every day, but now instead of cleaning up their messes, I'm helping them find their voices. Leo got a full scholarship to Juilliard, and we still play together whenever he comes home for the holidays. This journey taught me that your past doesn't define your worth. And sometimes the person you think is the least important in the room is the one carrying the most beautiful story. Never judge someone by the uniform they wear or the job they do, because you never know what kind of brilliance they are hiding behind a quiet exterior. The world tried to turn me into a ghost, but music gave me a second life, proving that no matter how deep you bury the truth, the melody will always find its way to the surface. If you found this story inspiring or if it made you think twice about the people around you, please like this video to show your support. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to share more stories of resilience and justice. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a daily upload of these incredible real-life dramas. I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt invisible? Or have you ever discovered a hidden talent in someone else? Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I read every single one of them. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you all in the next story.